Okay. So, like I said, my name is Annie Toto, and I was the executive director of a company called Sportsometry, and I was there for about 8 years until just last December when I ended up having a baby. So I've been home with my baby now, and so I was at Sportsometry for about 8 years since 2011. Um, and I've been a basketball coach for about 10 years. Um, and I'll start off with just going through what Sportsometry is. I'll tell you guys about what it is, what my role was as the executive director. It's a nonprofit company, and it's out of New Haven, Connecticut. I've probably worked with approximately over 1,000 students in the New Haven area. So I'll go through what that is. I'll go through what my role as an executive director of a nonprofit was. I'll go through how I got the position, and then I can get into sort of maybe if you're interested in pursuing some sort of career that involves athletics, how you might get into that, some opportunities you can look for, and then I know Hallie because I am her basketball coach. So one of the things that really resonates with me is being like a coachable player. And I thought that that's something that I would want to communicate to you guys also, and just give some tips about as a high school athlete, what could make you really coachable and set you apart from other student athletes. So Sportsometry, like I said, is actually Hallie said that in the beginning, it's a nonprofit, and we're out of New Haven, Connecticut, and we combine athletics with math and science, and we go into schools, and it's like a after school program, or it could be an enrichment program during the school day if school wanted to sort of supplement a math class or supplement their phys ed classes, they could use Sportsometry. We also do summer camps, and the inception of it began way back in 2004. The founder and CEO, her name is Annie Toto. She was a squash player, and she had like a partial blindness. And she was playing one day, and she was thinking to herself, like, this is so interesting that I have this partial blindness. The ball is coming off the wall, and I can get my racket on it, even though I can't see it. But how am I able to do that? Like, how do I know? And obviously she's thinking in her head, like, there's math that goes into this, geometry, angles, there's science that goes into it with like the velocity of the ball. And but it's not like she's on the court there pulling out her protractor and measuring. They sort of know it intuitively. And so she's like, maybe I could do this and create some sort of program to incorporate the math and science of squash. So it started off as Squashometry. And then as she sort of developed that curriculum, she decided this would apply to all sports. And when you guys think about it, there's math and science in pretty much every sport that you could play. So has anyone seen or heard of the sports science clips that they do for ESPN? There's like these little short, brief clips that they have on ESPN. You can YouTube them. Let's see. On ESPN, and they do like, oh, great. So they do like this, they'll sort of explain like the part of a sport that involves math or science. So what I did here is I have a clip they did one on Steph Curry's shot. So I'm just going to play this quickly. I think I have to pull my headset out, but just make sure, let me know if you can hear this. So once I start playing it, just let me know that you guys can hear it. So this is sort of similar to like the idea behind Sportsometry. was hoping I could play this. Anyone know what, maybe how I can get this to go?
I'm not sure, but if you'd like, I can try to find the link like off of YouTube or something, and I can put it in chat and everyone can watch it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's see. Or maybe if I close the chat that I had open. Oh, that's too bad. Okay, yeah, so let me see. Hal, are you able to like search it right now? Okay.
Find it. Oh yeah, I think I found it. 1 second. I'll put the link in chat.
Okay, cool. You guys could watch that. Do you want to watch that now? Like everyone watch it on their own? Or should we just, you guys can watch it another time? What would work best for this?
Either is good. Maybe we can all, I'm not sure how long it is, but if it's quick, maybe we could all watch it right now. Oh, it's like 2 minutes. Maybe we could watch it on our own, if that works. Sorry, I think Zoom cut out for me. I think it's, maybe we can all watch it on our own.
Okay.
You wanna? Okay, cool.
Okay, you want to do that now or after?
Maybe after, just since it's like 2-ish minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so you guys can watch that. So what they talk about, I'll go through it. Since I am a sportsometrist, I should be able to explain it. So in the video, what they'll do, and ESPN Sports Science, it's really cool. They have like a bunch of videos, and they'll take like, not just basketball, they have all different sports. This one with Steph Curry talks about like the angle at which he releases his shot and why it's so quick and how he can have such a higher shooting percentage. So as far as how that links into science and the sports, they'll talk about the arc, the angle of like the arc that his shot takes. And because his arc is much higher, it takes like this downward trajectory toward the basket, where the basket, ends up looking a lot bigger with a bigger angle to go through the basket. Whereas if he had like a flat shot, or other players who have a flat shot, then the rim is not as wide, for the basketball to get through. So that sort of helps him to have such a higher 3-point percentage. So that's the sort of the idea behind it, but they don't do just basketball. There's one on like tennis where they talk about grunting. I don't know if anyone's watched tennis, and they grunt. Oh, let me just put my headset back in, if that's more clear. Probably sound a little clearer. So there's one about tennis where grunting, when players grunt, like, does it actually help them when they're hitting the ball? And what they said was that actually when you grunt, your muscles in your core tighten up, and as you grunt when you're hitting the ball, it actually helps you to put more force on your swing. So it does actually help your swing. And for whatever reason, they took data on it, and players who are returning a serve from a player who's grunting actually have less success, and they're late on their returns. And so they didn't say why that is, like why the return is late, but me being, into sportsometry, I would then take that to like one of our sportsometry classes and sort of say like, why do you guys think that this is the case? If they're grunting and hitting at the same time, why do you think opponents end up being late on those serves in comparison to someone who's not grunting? So if you guys have any hypotheses, you can go ahead and put that in the chat. Something that like I think about is the speed of light and sound are different. So if someone's hitting and grunting at the same time, the grunt, travels slower, so it might throw off the opponent. Just something like that. So that's sort of the basis of what we do with sportsometry. Let's see. So Jennifer, interesting, both martial arts and modern dancers encourage breath as a part of movement. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, awesome. So it's stuff that applies to all sports, which is so cool. And with this and how sports science and math are incorporated with lots of sports, and not necessarily grunts, right? You know, when it's directly related, we can get into that with our high schoolers, which is really cool. And it's very, you know, interesting stuff that you can get really into the nitty gritty with older students. But in sportsometry, there's a higher need for us to work with younger students. In New Haven, there's just like a bigger need for those after school programs. So we don't necessarily talk so much about like the sciencey parts of sports with like second graders. Instead, what we'll do is we will teach sort of what they're learning in school for math mostly. So if a grader is learning about, we'll then for the students, and then we'll do an activity after the lesson. We'll take them to the gym, or we'll do some outdoor space, and we will have them read some graphs where they have to do bounce passes and chest passes. So they have to read from the graph how many bounce passes to do or how many chest passes. And before we actually do the activity, we'll teach them those athletic skills. So first we teach them like the athletic skill, the mechanics of the passes, and then they have to go into the activity where they read the graph, and they will then interpret it and do what it's asking them to do. So that's just an example of how we tie in the math and science. Here's just a slide with some quotes from our students. They just love that we can have fun while they're learning, you know, and it's just a big part of why we end up doing this program with students, because a lot of students tend to struggle with math or science. And one of the reasons why we end up, you know, pairing athletics with math and science is this idea when you have like a highly preferred activity like sports with lower preferred activity like math, when you pair them together, that like reinforcing feeling of fun and excitement of a game hopefully gets transferred into that lower preferred activity of math. So, you know, then math becomes fun because you're doing a game. And then we also do it because there's been so much research over the past decade that I'm sure you guys might be a little familiar with being athletes, but exercise actually can increase your brain power. And, you know, we hear about this all the time, that like, it's just so important to be active and not just moving your body, but it helps to, you know, get your brain moving, and just keeping active really, really helps with everything that you're doing. And one of the studies that I thought is really fascinating, I just figured I'd share this as, you know, one of the things I always talk about why we know that exercise increases your brain power. It's this study that was done by a neuroscientist. His name was Fred Gage, and he used mice in this study where he had like a little rodent-sized pool of opaque water, and mice don't like water. And in the pool, in like one quadrant of the pool, there was a platform, like an escape route for the mice to get out, but it was underneath the water. And what they did was they had two groups of the mice. One group of the mice had were active, and they would have them run on a wheel throughout the night for like 4 kilometers overnight, which seems crazy for a mice to be running 4 kilometers overnight. So half the group would be active, the other half would be inactive, and then they would put them in the pool and time them and see how long it took for them to escape the pool and get out. And then they would do it over and over and over again and time them over and over and see which group would end up learning or figuring out how to get out of the pool better. And it turned out that the active mice consistently had like faster times getting out of the pool, which sort of says that they were learning and they were remembering better than those mice that were inactive. And they also then were able to measure parts of the brains of the mice. And what they found was that those mice that were active actually had, they had grown like more stem cells in their hippocampus, which if you guys are at all familiar with parts of the brain, the hippocampus is responsible for memory and learning. So it's actually, they actually were making their brains bigger by exercise. So that's kind of cool. And it's really important because that's what we do with Sportsometry. We get the kids active while they're learning so that it is engaging their brain at the same time. But it's also something that anyone should know, just as like an athlete, a lifelong athlete. You should know that because, you know, when you're active, you want to keep your brain going. And we've found that at 20 years old, your brain actually begins to like decrease and you lose like brain power at the age of 20, which is bad news for me because I'm way older than 20, but you guys are still in your prime. But you know, that's just a way to make sure that you're, you know, just keeping up and not letting your brain turn to mush. So stay athletic and stay, you know, active throughout your lives. And it's really important. So that's something that we also just try to let the kids, you know, try to help them to understand that that's a part of life and being, you know, healthy. So how did I get into Sportsometry? It was sort of an accident. It didn't happen. I didn't go to school for Sportsometry because that doesn't exist. But I ended up doing my undergrad in psychology. And that was a little challenging, graduating with a psychology degree, because I knew I liked psychology, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. So I ended up getting a job at a local university, and I went into financial aid. So I was a financial aid tuition planner for about 3.5 years. And at that university, I was able to get my master's degree. So I got my master's in human services, and for my master's degree, I had to do an internship. And I had always been looking for something that involved sports, and I fell into Sportsometry, and they needed an assistant instructor. So what I ended up doing was I used that position as my field work and my internship for my master's. And I was able to get into a career that I really loved that had to do with sports. So while I was the executive director, I was the only, Sportsometry is a really, really small program. So I was the only full-time person at the program. So I did everything. So it's a nonprofit. So I ended up doing all like the networking, all of the connections with other local communities that offer youth serving programs. And I also managed all of our staff and all of our instructors. And then in addition to that, I created all of the curriculum for the students. So a lot of it was heavy into like education. So if anyone's going into education or interested in that, that's a lot of what I did. I wrote all the lesson plans to make sure that they were aligned with what students were learning at the time, you know, second grade Common Core math standards with second graders, and then adding that athletic component. So it was really able to help out, you know, in terms of applying what I love, which is math and science, as well as athletics. And that's how I ended up getting into it. And, you know, I never thought this was where I would end up, and it just sort of happened because I sort of just like got that opportunity that for my internship to go into something that was related to sports and something that I love. So I just wanted to touch on a couple things. You guys are in high school right now, and if you want to go into some career in athletics, just make sure that you guys are really open to any type of opportunities. I have a few friends who ended up in athletic careers, whether it's in broadcasting or coaching at the college level. And many of them started out with like internships or work study programs in like the athletic office at their college. So if this is something you guys are looking to do and you want to get into a career for athletics, I would suggest when you go to school, when you go off to college, definitely contact like the athletics office, see if there are any opportunities for employment or internships or on-campus work study programs in any of the offices. And, you know, you could end up at, you know, the football office filing stuff, but maybe after a year or two, you know, you become a sophomore, you become a junior, you get to know everyone, and there's an opening for them. They need someone in like the communications department, and you get to go and take over their social media account for the day, or you get to be on the sidelines for the basketball games or something like that. So I would definitely say that, you know, even if it's starting small with filing, that's totally fine. You just want to get your foot in the door. Also, you guys can start things now like volunteering with youth programs. So when I first started coaching, I wasn't like coaching in a position where I was getting paid or anything. I was volunteering at camps. I was volunteering at skills clinics. I did like summer teams and fall teams for high school girls, but it wasn't like a paid opportunity. I was just volunteering to do that. And that sort of like, first it gave me experience, and second it got my name out there. I was able to get familiar with referees and get familiar with other coaches, and my face was out there, and people were able to see me as like, oh, you know, a coach that's all over the place, and ended up helping me to get like a travel job and then a high school job, and just by people recommending me. Really, I didn't end up applying for any jobs. I was like recommended by people like, oh, you should ask Annie, she would be great for that, or something like that. So I definitely would just recommend being open to any opportunities like that, volunteering, getting out there as soon as you get onto campus. When you're in college, if you want to try to get some opportunity in the athletics office, do it soon, because those jobs are probably go like hotcakes. So you want to try to get in there as soon as you can. And then lastly, if you know you don't find something, or you're not in some athletic career or job or part-time employment, whatever, you can get creative and you can start your own thing. You can fulfill a niche that needs to be fulfilled. Like the founder of Sportsometry, it was just because she was doing what she loved by playing squash, and just followed her passion and started this program all on her own. And then there's so many opportunities. I think, Hallie, are you having Shannon Hovan on next week? Okay. So Shannon's awesome, and she's sort of, you know, I don't want to give too much away from what her talk will be about, but Shannon is so passionate about women in athletics, and she saw this niche where there is, you know, this need for something, and she went in and she's sort of working on building up this brand right now, all-encompassing brand to get a focus on women in athletics, and she's just awesome. So I definitely think you guys should tune in next week for Shannon too. She's super just passionate and very wise, and I'm sure that'll be like a really awesome talk to listen to. But she did the same things. You know, she's an architect. She found something that she really wanted to pursue and just started something all on her own. So if you're not in something currently that has to do with athletics and you want it to happen, just try to be creative and start something on your own. Kind of like Hallie, how you started this group. Like, that is such a cool initiative. and just really commendable. And, you know, it can lead to different, you know, so many different things. You guys are going to be listening to so many different people talk about sports and careers, and it just could lead to so many opportunities. So I definitely think you guys should take any opportunities that come along. But if, you know, you don't end up somewhere that you want to, try to get creative and make it happen for yourself. So I'll switch gears here. Does anyone have any questions about sportsometry or, you know, career involving athletics or anything at all? If you do, you know, you can jump in now or type it in the chat. Whatever works best is totally fine. But I'll just switch gears. If a question comes up, I'll go ahead and answer. But I do know Hallie from being her coach. So I am a basketball coach. I primarily coach like youth level, 7th grade through 12th grade. And I love that like 7th, 8th grade age, because as you guys probably know, being in that like middle school age, it's that weird, uncomfortable, awkward time where you're sort of figuring yourself out. And you know, you just need these like tools and resources to become a human and become like a functioning young adult. And I love coaching that age because it's important to me to be able to teach kids, you know, just like character building traits and how to be a great player, a great teammate, and just a good person. So something that I always think is really valuable is hearing from a coach what a coach is looking for in a player, because that's going to get you a spot on a team, or that's going to keep you in a game in important situations, or that's going to, you know, just, you know, give you that captain name when you want to be a captain or a leader on a team. You know, being coachable is going to help to get you there. So there's just a couple overarching just ideas that I think are really important. So I'll start out with effort, obviously. And these sort of go into everything you do in your life. So not just athletics, but you have to be able to give like 100% effort into everything you do. And that's what a coach wants to see. And it's so important. That just bleeds into everything, whether it's effort in a game, whether it's effort in practice, or even just effort like sending a text message. So if you're going to be late to your practice, your coach wants you to send a text and just say, hey, I'm going to be late. And I know that might sound silly and easy, but a lot of times it's too much effort for some people to just send a message or to just go out of their way and do a little extra. So it's just effort in everything. And that's just something important that, again, being a coachable player is probably the most important thing to a coach. And someone like me, I don't care if you're the greatest basketball player. If you're coachable, that's like way more important to me. That's way more important to a lot of coaches, because it's someone who's willing to grow as a player. And that's something that we should all be willing to do, you know, in your lives. You should be willing to grow as a person or as a student or as a student athlete. And that should just seep into everything, because that's just going to make you successful. So putting in your effort, if you don't have the effort, you know, it's not gonna happen. And so the second thing is attitude. And again, that's something that is just a very overarching with everything you do in your life. You want to have a really great attitude about it. You want to be positive, and that's what a coach is looking for. You know, if a coach is giving you feedback, you should be open to it. When you're with your teammates, you should be positive. You shouldn't have a bad attitude. If someone makes a mistake in a game, your attitude means everything. So you could say to someone like, come on, better passes. And that's not a good attitude. But you could also say to someone, all right, come on, better passes, you got it. That's a good attitude. And that is something that like a coach wants to see. Your attitude really, really means everything. And I just, speaking from experience, I know that there was like this one time when I was playing softball in like a youth league, and I had a coach who I thought I knew everything. And I tried to make this like far throw from left field to home plate, and the coach told me that I shouldn't have done that and I should have thrown to the third baseman instead, because we ended up giving up a run, and then the runner ended up going to third base because I overthrew it all the way to home plate. And in my head, I'm like, well, I make that throw all the time. I just like made a mistake this time. I made that. That was a very bad attitude, and a coach would not want to hear that from someone, because the coach is actually right. Like, I should have thrown the ball to the third baseman instead of trying to hum the ball all the way to home plate, because not only did I let up a run, but now there was a player on third base instead of having no one on third base. So just in that moment, I was not being a very coachable player, and my attitude was bad about that in particular. So that's not something that a coach wants to see, and I wasn't very successful on that team, and that was like a learning moment for me. Like, I needed to fix my attitude because the coach knew what they were talking about and I didn't. I was just the player, and there was a reason why I was the player and not the coach. So having the right attitude is so important. And then lastly, is communication, and this is really important, and it's something that I'm sure is brought up all the time today, especially with you guys and your generation. Like, everything, all communication is digital, and all communication is like, in a chat or on, through Instagram or in a text message or emails. And, it's really important for you guys, if you are pursuing like high school careers or anything after this, whether you want to be pursuing athletics in college, or if you're not pursuing athletics at all and you just are want to think about being a successful wherever you are, whether it's in like your career or just in your college class. When you go to college and you're on this campus and you are in like a big classroom with all these strangers, one of the things that's so important is communication and just not being shy about it. When I coach my 7th and 8th grade girls, one of the big things that I always notice is that they're so scared to talk sometimes or use their voice. And like, we'll do drills where no one's talking and it's just nothing gets accomplished. And once we start using your voice, it's so much more important. Like grunting in a tennis match, it might sound weird to use your voice like that, but it's actually successful. So think about communication as like grunting in a tennis match. Like, it might give you that edge on someone else when you're communicating. No one wants to be talking to someone who's quiet or shy or afraid to speak. Like, if you are being a good coachable player, you can communicate back to your coach and you can communicate to your teammates in a really good way. You want to make sure that you're able to express things that your coach is saying, and when your coach is talking to you, you should be able to say back to them like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. If I'm a coach and I'm talking to my player and looks like I'm talking to a brick wall, like, that's not going to get anything accomplished either. So you want to be able to have that give and take with your communication. And I know that gets a lot of young people who maybe aren't very confident out of their comfort zone. But it's just so important. And sometimes you kind of have to fake it to make it. And if you don't feel comfortable, you have to think in your head, like, all right, I got to like psych myself up. I got to psych myself out and go into like autopilot and just become the person I want to be, or the person I feel like I need to be in this moment to be successful. And that might mean, getting really sweaty and nervous, but talking when maybe you wouldn't have talked during like a class, or asking a question or answering a question in class, or being on the court and yelling to your teammate, great job, or when you're swimming, or when you're, I know in track and all your meets and everything, you guys are always cheering. Like, that's awesome. Just like, those are great ways to be communicating with your teammates and help your teammates know that you're there for them. But it also helps your coach know that like you're on board for everyone. And with all these sports, you want to make sure that you're letting your coach know that it's not just about you, it's about your team and the success of your team, and that you're there for everyone. And I have this really funny story. This awesome story it's about Hallie. And I asked Hallie if it's okay that I share, but Hallie is, I coached Hallie for 3 years, and Hallie's probably like the most coachable player I've ever coached ever in my career. And that's because she gives the effort, she gives the attitude, and she's always talking. So she has a positive attitude. She doesn't give attitude. She has a really positive attitude. And when we do drills in practice and everything, we'll give points for like communication and people who are talking, and like Hallie is always talking, and a lot of times wins these drills if they're competitions because of her talking. And that's, you know, one of those really awesome things when we'll say to players like, okay guys, talk. And when a coach says something to a player, it's really not like, we're not saying like, oh, you have the option to talk. No, it's like, talk, just do it. And Hallie never ever hesitates, and she talks, and it's really important. And also her effort is always there. And this one, I've actually, Hallie, I've told this story to so many people before, just because it's the like epitome of it's the epitome of just doing the right thing with, as far as like giving effort as a player. I've told the story as a coach to other coaches who don't even know Hallie, just being like, oh, this is what happened in a game, and it was amazing. And we were playing in a game. This was probably the first tournament that I ever coached this team. Hallie was in 7th grade. It was the first tournament I ever coached them. And we were maybe a little rough around the edges and a little bit sloppy. The whole team was. We only had like 7 players, I think, and everyone was just trying their hardest, but also like just like throwing their bodies all over the place because we were all new and we hadn't played together for a long time. So everyone was working their butts off, and Hallie especially working her butt off and just working so hard. And I think, Hal, you ended up getting like a little hurt on a play. So you came out, and then another player got hurt on a play because she was throwing herself all over the place. And so she came out, and we only had 5 girls left who were not hurt. And I had Hallie and another player on the bench who were hurt at the time. And we had a timeout. And I pulled all the girls in, and one of the players who was in the game said to me, like, coach, am I going to get a break yet? And I was like, well, we only have 5 players yet. Like right now, like I can't give you a break because your teammates are on the bench. They're hurt. And that girl in that moment was like, oh, like, I just want a break. And Hallie, being the awesome coachable player who always gives so much effort, was like, coach, I can go in. And like, I knew at that moment, Hal, I'm pretty sure you were really hurt, but you just were like, my teammate needs me, my team needs me, my coach needs me, I want to go in. And I think that is like just the most awesome thing that every coach wants to have any player do. And you know, obviously if she was really hurt, I wouldn't throw her into a game. But just like wanting to give that effort at all times, no matter what, is just everything that a coach wants to see. And she has such a great attitude. So I would say that is something that you want to think about being high school players. And again, just hearing from a coach, I think, is really valuable. This is stuff that we want to see from players, and it's easy to like hear and be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. But you kind of have to really try to embody that in those moments where you can get angry at your teammate, or you can take that moment and be like, okay, this is hard for me, but all right, you're fine, to your teammate, you know, you're fine. This may have made you angry that they messed up a play, but instead of being angry at them, you could say like, you know, all right, great job, we'll get them next time. You know, that's something that is, as a person, you might need to work on and think about in those moments. But if you can, it's going to make you such a better person, not just on your teams, but in your life, in your career, when you go to apply for jobs, and when you're working with people out in the real world. Like, being a coachable player means being like a successful person in general. So I hope that those little points resonate and are helpful. And I think that's mostly everything that I wanted to say about that part, being a coach. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, no, I think that might be everything then. So that's really everything that I wanted to talk about. And thank you again, Hal, for having me. Um, and I hope that you guys got something out of it, whether it's about my career or the job of sportsometry. Something I did want to mention, because I know a lot of you guys are in different sports, and you might want to like pursue something in athletics afterward. As the executive director of sportsometry, we did a lot of hiring of our instructors, who had athletic backgrounds. So that's something you can think about if you want to use your athletic background to maybe get like a part-time job while you're in college, or a part-time job even as a high school student during the summers or something. Something like that, like sportsometry or an after-school program. You'having that athletic background is something that's really valuable to people who are hiring, because we know that you've been on teams, you've worked with teams before, maybe you're a leader on that team that you've been on, but that's something that we're always looking for, people who come from athletic backgrounds, because you do build character as an athlete, especially in high school when you're learning to balance that, school and athletics, and working toward getting into colleges and all of that jazz. So it's something that you could definitely look into, as a possibility or an opportunity to explore.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. I know personally I learned a lot from this talk, so I really do appreciate it. If anyone
Thanks.
has any kind of like lingering questions or just a thought that popped into your head like throughout this kind of presentation or this talk, feel free to put it in chat. I know, yeah, Coach Annie, you were it's so great. Everything was really well. It was very thorough and really well thought out. So I really appreciate that. No questions are coming to mind for me, at least right now, but if anyone else has anything that you'd like to say, please either raise your hand or put it in chat. But yeah, just a big thank you to Annie. I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate everyone else being here. I believe, yeah, next week around the same time, Sunday at 2 o'clock EST, we're going to have Coach Shannon Hovan here, and she's going to be talking about her experiences. She's also a basketball coach at a high school near my house, or like near my town. And and she, like Coach Annie said, has some really cool projects that she's working on right now that I think are especially focusing on women in athletics, which is something I'm really passionate about, and I think is really awesome. And so I'm really excited about her talk. So I hope everyone else is able to join us next week, and hopefully more as well. Yeah, so again, any questions that you have, please put them in chat. But thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Hallie. This was awesome.
Okay, cool. If no one has any questions, I think I'm gonna end the meeting, but thank you guys all for being here, and thank you for taking the time to do this, Annie.
All right, no problem. Thanks, guys. Thanks for
Bye.
coming. Bye.